Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the November 17th Conservation Commission meeting. And we have Kurt too. Okay, I'll make it a motion to open the meeting. That way we get our roll call vote in. I move to open the meeting at 7:16. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. And any discussion and a roll call vote? Michael, aye. Actually, all announce yourselves since this is part of that Zoom thing, I think. Announce yourselves and say and vote. Just
Jacob Strauss present.
Courtney Eck present.
Carol McGarry present.
Steve Grimshaw present.
Kurt Stiegel present.
Matt O'Lear present.
okay. You all said presence. I got a model thing here, but I'll take them all as ayes. So the meeting is now opened. Now, in terms of the agenda, we have to, even though it's always a gray area, we have a couple of site issues that we could easily handle under site issues, but I'll just, I guess we should clarify when we get site issues, whether we need to revise our agenda or just move them up. But I'll say that I'll move to amend the agenda to add two things that came up in the last 24 to 48 hours. An issue at Leland Mill Pond there, as well as a site issue possibly. I guess I'll ask you, Courtney, do we have to talk about Bear Hill or it's just a matter of doing something?
I mean, I don't think we need to, there's anything really to discuss right now. We'll just need to issue things.
Okay, so I'm not going to formally add, I just want to add the Leland Mill
Okay.
thing there to the agenda so we could look at that. Okay, so that's my move, is to amend the agenda with that item. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Michael, aye. Steve?
Aye.
Kurt?
Aye.
Jacob?
Aye.
Courtney?
Aye.
Carol?
Aye.
Okay, I think I got everybody.
Matt, aye.
Sorry, you're right in the middle too. Okay, 7-0. Okay, we have the agenda. So let's move on. I don't see Kelly here. But as part of land management, I am going to start with maybe that's Leland Mill. I don't know if people got to see it. Let's see, my screen is, there we go. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see here. Okay. We received a notice from the DPW director. Whoops, I guess I'll bring him in. I'll just let him know. Let me just text him to say,
I'm here, Michael.
okay, great. Okay, that's right. I saw
You
you.
never know if you're splitting your time between here and select board.
I had one ear on the select board, so I shut off Kitty Sturgis talking about Woodhaven.
Okay, we will comment on that. Okay, so our observant DPW director has noticed that, I don't know if everybody knows the Leland Mill Pond. It's over on Mill Street. before it gets to Hollis. There's a piece of conservation property there, and there is it's called Leland Mill Pond. It's an old mill pond. And this is the part of the old structures for when it was used. And this is on the upstream side. There's a whole pond down below and to the left and to below. There's a wonderful little trail around there. And like I've noticed in other places, even on my property, all the dead branches and other things start accumulating and being washed there and blockage, and has a blockage there. So the request is that before things get carried away and also all this stuff goes downstream and maybe create some issues, whether the issue is whether to just clear this out by hand, which is, I assume, that what you're talking about, Sean.
Yeah, I don't think it's a good idea to leave it there. And I'm not sure it's the beaver didn't put it there. Some of those sticks look chewed, but I've been there. I've checked on that dam quite a bit in high water. And when it's clear, a couple of the storms last year, the water just goes around the dam and hits the embankment. And it's built pretty well. It can take some, but if there's too much overspill on the sides, it's going to do irreparable damage. So and that dam, we don't know how much hydraulic pressure that dam can take by being jammed up like that. So it's not a good idea to leave it clogged like that.
I guess we could find out if we remove the stuff, whether it's an active beaver thing or whether that's just a little bit there. I guess once it's moved, we could see if there's repeated action.
Right. And, under my normal order of conditions, if that was a culvert, I could clear it if I didn't think it was a beaver, if it was clogging it. But one, it's a waterway. Two, the commission owns this piece of property. So.
And we manage it, right?
Right.
Is this the,
Go ahead,
is this
everybody.
the outflow? Is
Yeah.
this the outflow from the lower pond, or is this the upper pond to the lower pond?
This is a lower pond. This is right at Mill Street.
Okay, got it.
If I pan the camera up a little bit more, you'd actually see the culvert going on to Mill Street.
Yeah, just behind us is Mill Street. Other commissioners have thoughts or issues about this?
I mean, it makes sense, and if the water already is flowing around it, I don't think taking all that crud out is gonna significantly change water levels, just to make it less of a problem in the future,
Yeah, I would say to just, we should do it and see, we can see how persistent the beaver activity is, and then we have another issue to go at. If it is an active beaver situation. But we can wait and see about that. I don't know whether we need to formally vote to clean this out or just say, go ahead and clean out. What do people think? Should we vote on this?
I think we should vote on it.
Okay, sure. Then I move that we allow the DPW to clear out the woody debris at Leland Mill Pond in order to avoid any more damage to the embankments on the sides. And this will be done manually. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Lots of them. Okay, we're all there. Okay, any other discussion?
Do we need to issue anything?
I don't think so. It's under the sort of the standard maintenance kind of thing there. I don't think we need to issue anything.
Okay.
We can, but yeah. Okay, roll call vote. Michael, I, Steve,
Aye.
Carol,
Aye.
Courtney,
I
Matt,
Aye.
Kurt,
Aye.
Jacob.
Aye.
Okay. go forth and help and clean up, Sean, and let us know if you see continued activity there. So then we'll have to start thinking about how we want to manage that.
You bet. Thanks, all.
Okay, thank you for finding it. Thanks.
I'm gonna stay logged on so I can listen to Kelly.
I don't know, is Kelly here?
Yeah, he hasn't showed up yet.
I think he wasn't necessarily going to talk about, yeah, even though you guys had a meeting, unfortunately, well, actually, Joyce is not here tonight to everybody because she had to be away. But I gather other folks between Carol, Steve and Jacob. You can somebody could do a little summary there, and because that obviously will come to it at some point on terms of budgetary implications. Does anybody want to give a report of the meeting?
Well,
I
so there
wasn't-
were,
I was not in the last meeting. I was in the site walk, so I'll defer.
Oh, you weren't there on the Thursday, when you guys met, on Wednesday or something? Morning?
I wasn't able to make it Wednesday morning.
Oh, okay, so maybe it was just, who was there? Jacob, Steve, I think were there?
yeah, it's Jacob and Steve. We were so there were three of us there on the site walk with Kelly early at Hidden Meadow last weekend or the weekend before, whichever one that was. And then just Steve and I were at the meeting with Sean this week.
Okay. You want to report back on any particular things?
Let's see. We talked about the management and sort of mowing practices at Hidden Meadow and some of the other conservation areas, in particular the Barber. And so basically asking Sean's opinion about what looked best and what was the recommended intervals and approaches for a few of these properties, and then also how might we maintain some of the stone walls that had been cleared around some of them. And so, for example, around the Hopestall property, and sort of, for example, so how do we not let that go back to the overgrown state that it was just a few years ago? One of the ideas there was to use the Sean. I'm going to get the names of the equipment incorrect, so please correct me. But one of some of the new tractors that can get fairly close to the stone walls. Recommendation was to consider doing that more than once a year, and the item we're going to have to consider is impacts on nesting birds. Sort of how to trade off between those two, in particular some of the areas that have lots of invasives. Does trying to control the invasives outweigh avoiding impact to birds that need the meadows? And I think we're going to have to discuss that, because I don't think there's an obvious answer there. And then might we use some of the machinery that DPW had for clearing roadsides, and use that to prevent overgrowth over some of the walls? Do that every couple of years as needed, and see how that goes. There was a schedule that was prepared last year for, I don't remember who prepared it. I know I have it in email, but I'd have to go dig up. And one of the requests from Sean was to update that and review that and see what we might change for next year and future years.
Gene Bednar created that.
Gene, yes, okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
can I piggyback on?
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing that was discussed, it came up actually in the meeting, an 8 o'clock meeting, is mowing frequency, and I guess we'll discuss that. But also access to the Hidden Meadow was a huge deal, and one proposal was there's a little causeway, if that could be updated, repaired, and I think there's obviously that's not something that obviously is a yes, that's for sure. Right now, the access is off from private property, and Sean said that's not what was preferred. I mean, it's, I think the landowner who allows it is, he's benefiting from the field being mowed. But correct me, Sean, but my understanding is that it's preferable not to depend on going on private land. And there was some discussion also about what trails might be rehabilitated or whatever, but I think the focus was mostly on the meadow in terms of conversations with Sean and a group that went out and did the site visit.
Right. One of the topics that we discussed there was that if we are going to do any work to improve access only over town land to the meadows without having to go over private property, it wouldn't make sense to do that unless we also made it accessible for fire equipment. Because currently there's also no way to get a fire truck into the hidden meadow area without going over private property. So when we look at the trail from Bear Hill Road and see if we can get to the meadow proper, we should also be looking and seeing, can we make that accessible to fire trucks? And that same topic will come up at other properties as well, especially as we see increasing droughts like we had this year. The need to get fire trucks onto all of the conservation land and all town-owned land is going to grow in importance.
And I think, I wasn't there, but my comment to that would be that right now it's a really small trail through the woods and through a lot of wetland areas. So I really think this is one that the group has to think about really carefully, what proposal we would make and how we balance these concerns and how we balance, the risk of fire.
Whose property do we go over now when you do mowing there?
Westworth.
Okay, that's what I thought. And there's I think we also could get at it from other properties as well as to whether we just work with that, because you're right, as Carol said, the trails from Bear Hill Road are just would be quite problematic to make that accessible because of all the wetlands. We once looked at on Western Ave putting in a parking lot where the property goes there. So we once did some invasives clearing over there.
We looked at that too. It's a shame Kelly's not here. We really should have this conversation when he's here. We looked at that twice this year, early this spring when Gene and myself and Kelly, and I can't remember if Carol was there. I don't think she was.
That also has wetlands. What'd you think?
And we tried to walk from the backfield to Western, and you almost couldn't walk it.
Oh, is that bad now? Okay.
And I guess they walked it a few weeks ago, tried to get in from Western Ave, and it's even as dry and as low as the water is now, it's kind of wet. So there's certainly no easy way. It's going to take some serious conversations for the commission to discuss how best to do it. The good thing is it's not one of our most urgent things, because we know, Wes is going to be there for a while, hopefully. So we'll keep managing the field as it is. I think it's a good long-term goal to try to get better access in there, fully on town land. But yeah, it's definitely not easy. There's definitely either a stream crossing or a wetland crossing in there that's not going to be too easy.
Michael, or I don't know, any other longtime forest and trail person, when that was established, which was, I don't know how many years ago, but maybe within 50 years. I think it was probably within 30 years.
Hidden Meadow? I think it was around 2000 somewhere.
Oh, okay, right. So it was fairly recent. So was there does anybody know if there might have been an easement from Western Avenue at that point? Or Sean, do you know that when that was established, anybody thought of having an easement over some of those abutters lands, if they agreed to
I don't
that?
think there's an easement, but the property goes to Western Ave.
Yeah.
Oh,
Property does have frontage on Western Ave.
oh, I didn't realize that. Is it between two of
Around,
them?
and I can't think of the address of the house. But the
Oh.
one
It's
closer
there,
to
it's just a,
West Wertz, it loops around that property, but it ends up in that wetlands that you see when you come off of Maple and head towards Whitney.
Oh, okay.
yeah, it's just that it's a little wet along the road and it's a little choppy going down, but right, some years ago, we looked at putting in a parking lot there so that we can improve the access to that property, for more people. And there's a whole bunch of Japanese knotweed in there that we were, at one point, went back there and did an experiment of clearing that I imagine has made no dent in the
Yeah, no, it's all
problem.
back.
But yeah, so there is a way to do it and eventually, but I agree with you, Sean, that it's not a big priority. Wes has been gracious, and there's even the neighbors who I think, other neighbors who would also allow access. There's probably at least 2 other neighbors that might also enable that. So I don't think we have any even medium-term problems there. But okay, so we have to update, but coming back to the bigger picture. So we have to work on an update of our schedule, and I guess, right, we'll have to get of the schedule of mowing and then work out with you, Sean, what it is you'll do so that we can do our budgeting for this year, because it looks like you'll be able to allow us to save money so that we can cut down our land management costs in recognition of all the work that you can do. So everybody should be happy with that. Okay, so we'll have to get back to you. I guess we'll need Kelly to work on that budget and schedule with it with the working group.
Could
So,
I add something before Sean goes?
what's that?
Could I add one point?
Sure.
The scheduled mowing that Sean gave some explanation as to why they want to mow. It's in many ways easier to mow more often. Maybe he'd give the reason. Some of they can find this. You don't want to hit rocks, and if you want to keep down some of the nasty invasives to do so. But it struck me as being a fairly aggressive, not aggressive, but several mowings a year, and so I think we should make decisions about that. And I think one of the questions would be, well, what is it that we want to conserve? Do you want diversity in the fields, or do you want it to be more of a historical restoration of hay fields? Or, below quality hay? Well, I think the question for us is, in conjunction with John, is what the frequency is and what the goals are of the mowing.
I haven't, Michael, can I make a comment?
Sure, go, please.
I haven't unfortunately had a chance to look at the proposed schedule, but the reason that we decided to mow the barber fields in October was after lots of thought and deliberation by the Conservation Commission. It was part of the habitat restoration for nesting birds, and also just to create more habitat there. They used to be mowed several times, like I think in the spring, like in June, and then in the fall, and they would end up looking like lawns. And when you let the grasses grow up, you get the fireflies, you get more of the wildflowers, you get the pollinators. So that was a deliberate choice. I think it would be a good idea for the Land Management Task Force to go back and, we're having a meeting, Kelly scheduled a meeting so that we can discuss this and come back with some recommendations.
Yeah. For a field, Sean, for the field, like even Hidden Meadow, that's been mowed a lot. Do you think that the issue of hitting rocks or this or that, or the heights that you can go, whether you just do a higher height, how strongly do you feel about the fact that we used to do it I think we've been doing it once a year, which would seem to be better for some of the issues Carol just talked about. How difficult is it for you to confront doing it, let's say, once a year versus more frequently?
I think it's a property by property basis, because the Hidden Meadow was intentional to try to knock back some invasives. It is a tough field to do anyway. and every year is going to be a little bit different. This year, there was areas that were probably impossible to mow other years because of some wet spots in that. Sorry, my dog decides to run around the house while I'm on. And there's some others that are wildly overtaken by invasives. We probably should hit more, like Hope Still. Now I'm going to mute.
One thing I would mention, because I know Hidden Meadow, the study that was done there noted patches of invasives. When we went out there, all of the vegetation is gone. So it's really hard for us now to say, hey, this area should be mowed more intensively, whereas this area is not so invaded. So I think one thing we should think about is, can we make some of these decisions on mowing frequency in the spring after we've had a chance to look at things coming up, see where the invasive patches are. There may be invasive patches where we'd say, you know what, let's mow this multiple times in this season to try to kick this back, and then leave the rest of the field to be mowed, later in the summer, whatever it might be. So I think that we have to kind of understand and follow the ecology here. And it's kind of hard to make those decisions actually in the winter.
That makes some sense. We're gonna have to end the conversation soon for the hearing that's coming. But okay, so I guess, but there's still gonna be the work of just making sure we know for our budget work, which we'll come talk about later, is just to know what ones are going to be covered and could be negotiated in the spring with Sean, as to based on what you see out there, and do some sort of mixing of balancing between what works for a DPW to do it and what kind of ecological goals we're trying to achieve. And we'll learn over time, and it might just change over time, like on Hope Still, where there is an area with the black swallowwort that we're trying to aggressively mow for a number of seasons, just to see whether that would actually hold it back. But okay, so I guess the working group has some stuff, and if others want to join, just so you know, that in terms of those kind of discussions now that are quite critical in terms of the schedule, if you, like Steve or Jacob, want to even, there's room to join that group for that kind of decision making. In terms of preparing a draft. Carol's already on it. But
can I make a comment
Yeah.
about that? I was even concerned at the last meeting that there were 3 commission members. I would discourage ending up with a quorum in a meeting outside of.
yeah, no,
This
that's why 3 is fine.
Yeah, but I'm saying, I thought you were encouraging more members to
Oh,
join.
no, I didn't know how whether Jacob or Steve go there regularly or not, but I'm just saying, just basically be careful that there's only 3.
Right.
Others are welcome to join in that discussion, and so then it would make it a little bit easier when it comes before the entire commission. That there's been more thought by more people put into it. Okay, so we'll have some more discussions, and we'll be working with Sean on that. Thank you, Sean, for all the being able to work on this stuff. Okay, that's the end of our land management discussion for now. I'm going to now, oh yeah, but at a fleeting moment that I want to say to everybody is this, is that you should look in the land management folder, because one of the things we have to think about is, and maybe we'll come back to this actually, is this idea of a trail. Let's come back, we'll bring this discussion back after the hearing about the land management issue regarding bridges and things like that, that is in the land management folder. Hopefully people now notice that you'll have to go to some other folders to look at some of the material there outside of just the meeting folder. We'll see if that works. Okay, it is 7:45. I am now reopening the hearing for the notice of intent under the Sherborn Wetlands bylaw for 3 Prospect Street for the proposed demolition of an existing house and the construction of a new single-family dwelling within the buffer zone of an isolated vegetated wetland. So I'm now reopening this hearing. And I gather that we're going to have some that the Shang wanted to make some presentation and discussion of things, even though we still are awaiting a bit of material that I realize is what's taking some time to prepare in terms of some of the topo material and such. But I guess, Shang, what is it that you wanted to talk tonight before we get the rest of the material that I assume will be available at some point? You
So,
wanna-
yeah, okay, good evening. No, thank you, Mike. So I did contact Joyce, and so we get this not only, a little bit over a week ago, and we get the field data back this week, and we are cranked on it. We just haven't finalized it. I don't want to submit some kind of like a 90% completed product to the commission, but I can share my screen, and I also prepared a response to all the 18 comments. I'm going to go over one by one just quickly. So it's just since this case is a little bit special, so I really it's under the bylaw only, and the situation it's a little bit historically and complicated. So I just want to do the best. I think it's for the resource protection as well as giving the property owner the fair right to redevelop this piece of land which is eyesore in the town. So okay, so if I could, if you don't mind, I can share my screen if
Sure.
that's- Okay, let's see. Okay, so I'm going to make it bigger so everybody can see a little bit better. So you can all see that? See my screen well?
Yes,
Okay, good. All right, so we received the commission's comments. Total is 18, but I think the major ones is if we can tweak the earth berm, which was designed to retain the water better, just to retain the water to sustain the wetlands, and to reduce or to minimize the impact or fill of this isolated wetlands. And so by reoriented, as well as to move the house as much as forward, which so feasible. So and some other questions I will go over so one by one, which will just sort of, you already see. I'm going to zoom it in, and so we have done lots of research, put the neighbor's house on. I haven't really getting, because this is just, we don't have their CAD file, so I just put a little image so that you can see where the neighbor's house is. And the leaching field is far away, it's 137 feet away, couldn't show on this plan, so I didn't show here. So incorporating, I think as much as we can, we reduced the wetland alteration from almost 1,200 square feet to less than 400. It's a 66% reduction. So right now it's only this pink area. I'm zoomed in, like in little tiny finger part will be as a proposed fill. And if you're looking at it, there is an upland tree here, which is a 6-inch sugar maple, probably in the past 10 years after abandoned. So we are going to save it anyhow. So, so because of the reduction of the fill, we could trim down the wetland replication to much smaller area. It's still 1.7 to 1. We could trim even another 70 or 75 square feet more, which we can kind of maintain the 50-foot no disturb zone to the neighbors almost exactly the same. Right now, it's just a couple of feet difference, but there's no, in my view, there's no practical impact to the current house use. They are their house is more than 100 feet away, and this area is wooded. So, and the existing 50-foot buffer zone is the green line is already, if you look in here, it's almost identical. Here I can trim just this strip. So it's up to, if we want to do it, I can do, but practically I really don't see any impact if you're looking the house. If you're looking at the house, so it's a totally outside of 100-foot buffer. So which is and probably 80, quite close to 80 feet away. So the house part, the leaching field is even further. So I don't. That's the following that guide. We do that. So, and we also did all the survey trees and the limit of dripping line of the woods. So you can see all the proposed replication area is pretty much outside of even the dripping edge. The tree is, no, this is actually, there's no tree here. This is just the limit of the clearance so of the existing yard. And the tree, we are outside of the tree, even dripping edge. So when we, right now, it's not going to impact any existing trees. So the 3 trees need to be cut. 2 is like a trunk, 2 double trunk trees. And we are going to propose, if you're looking, 5 trees in kind. So we can, that's what I want to listen to the commission's input. So right now with this existing trees, it's almost lined up with this existing tree to add in another protection or buffer for the wetlands in the future. So I feel it's a little bit better. In addition to the berm, we did shrink in the berm a little bit because we want to, be able to get the trees in, and then with the berm also reduce the fill to the wetlands. So the rail, in addition to the proposed railing protection, so this probably don't need to go that far. We can finalize it, and we add in 5 trees in line with the existing one, so it's forming like a nice buffer and the protection. So still give a reasonable yard for the homeowner to use down the road. So at the same time, there's a question. It's about, say, well, this is kind of almost like a wet meadow condition, but if you're really looking into it, there's already a good amount of woody plants embedded in. So, and most of them are invasive, European buckthorn, multiflorals, and oriental bittersweet. So that's another issue we want to discuss, but this is my professional opinion. Rather than that, those invasive species take over, that's why we propose the native enhanced drop to plant it in. So again, so this is not like you have a clear regulatory requirement. So that's why I seeking the commission's input and the Joyce input. So we will provide in the final. So, and there's some limitations. So when we move this house more forward, you can see it, the grades start drop. So it means in order to maintain a good gravity sewer line to the constructed leaching field, it will require fill more around the house. So that's another restriction factor. So we try to minimize and to get the that the septic system has been approved. So and even not approved, so a pumping system is not really ideal. So what we would think to keep the gravity system. So that's a restriction. So we still move the house almost 9 feet forward. So 8 point some feet. So that's a big picture. So the still stormwater treatment, everything is good. So while this said, I'm going to go over each of the items, and then maybe we can start discussions and the brainstorm after we get in all the questions or comments. So first, basically, so is looking of topos. So we did get all the topos. The number 1, I don't know if you have a Joyce comments list. So and second provide a
Excuse
spot.
me, Deshang, do you
Yes.
have you had sent the list of all their
Yeah, I can
questions?
share, I can
Why
share
don't you
that.
share that? I think it's helpful to
Yeah.
have
Well,
that
I
in
can
front of
share it too.
everybody to
Yeah, let
walk
me
them
share
through
that.
that.
I have it on my screen as well, if you want.
Yes, be helpful.
All right, great.
You have to stop sharing first if you want to. I guess if you zoom in. Okay, I just want to see.
I can open the
Okay,
comments.
fine.
Yeah, so to share that.
No, I'm just trying to see the topo in the,
Oh, you want to
which
be,
is, so we could see what's the actual grading.
okay, yeah, the
How much
grading
is
actually,
what you're actually gonna put in, what the changes are and what the topo is in the wetland area versus what you might
yeah,
replicate.
this is not going to be a significant excavation to meet. You have been there, you know, it's a very flat, mildly pitching. So if you're looking for the replication area, as I explained, this wetlands is called groundwater recharge wetlands. Means the water is coming from the well, they're soaking into the ground, and because they're so close, they creating the top like a 30 inches of soils with the hydric condition, and with the almost 20 inch of farm loam so nutrition. So high nutrients contents topsoil, they supported this ground cover growth. But if you're looking on the shrub layer and trees, they still upland. So it's a really marginal wetlands, in my opinion, because of just the groundwater recharge. Is not groundwater discharge. If it's a groundwater discharge, then you will need to rely on the groundwater from bottom up. So you want to have to cut the elevation more lower to have the depth to groundwater table low enough, less than 12 inches to support wetlands. But here is more or less like to retain the water and grading the water so that the water can be diverted to the area you want to make it into wetlands. So that's from the technical perspective. So we graded out. If you see that it's already like a big broad valley in this area. We just need to digging out of 6 inches to making that broad valley expanded to our replication area. So that's the idea. As far as around in the house to fill, and we haven't finalized this house, but it's pretty much about, if you're looking at it, 189 to 187, 186, is 2 to 3 feet of fill in the back. Is probably will be a little bit more in the front, is due to the one of the grading as we explained, because the grade is pitching forward. So that's from the contour perspective. You can see the overall as originally it's just confirm what we see there. So you can see that's a broad valley and the water coming from the well flowing in the broad valley, spread it out until they can spread it out, but gradually after they come into a point, there's no more water can sustain this hydrology to support the wetland. So they become all upland again, because there's not enough water to sustain it. So it is a special. That's what I would call quite a special condition out here. So
can I interrupt for a moment to ask a question, Michael?
Sure.
So Deshang, you've been talking a lot. I just want to ask some questions to clarify. So a couple things. One is all of this work is within the 50, and you mentioned filling not just where the area in red, but filling elsewhere to kind of bring up the elevation of the lawn. Have you provided that calculation of how much within the 50 will be altered or filled? How many square feet?
I haven't calculated, so all the proposed work is within the limit of current clearance.
Yeah,
So,
but I think that we really need to know, as we think about replication, I know we're focused on the area that was delineated as wetland, but we are talking about a lot of alteration within the 50. So I think that's one thing. The second thing, I think you probably haven't had a chance to do, but we did ask because you're making the argument that most of the wetland is being fed by that artesian well. And so one of the best practices that I had mentioned, and I reminded Joyce, so hopefully you found that in her comments, was, have you done any test pits to find out where the groundwater is relative, especially near the wetlands?
Well, we haven't done that depths, but from my augering, I augered down 3 feet, and the soil has become upland. So in a way, it's a brighter. So the modeling was within the near the well up here, and
Near the
model-
well when you augured, or down in the wetland area that's in red?
Yeah, so where my
Which-
I'm moving roughly about here. Okay,
So
so
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the request was that we were trying to figure out in the lower elevations where the current wetland area is. The request was to find out this, we want to find out what the groundwater is so that we know to what extent groundwater is actually replenishing the wet area there. So that was the request.
as I just explained to you, there's no groundwater naturally here from bottom up to replenish the wetland. The wetland, the
Well,
water.
But
So
Carol,
so that's the question I'm trying to understand. Did you test that, or how do you know that?
I did auger down. The deeper I auger, the drier the soils become, because the water is coming from the overflow spill out water, not from the water coming up. That's why at this, we didn't get a machine here to the testing, because we know the basement is 5-6 feet down. The bone dry, there's no sump pump. So means this is only 9 feet away from this wetland. So I would, if you're talking about the true high groundwater in this pink area, it would be probably 6-7 feet down like that.
I guess
Carol,
I don't.
I just want to interrupt. I will interrupt now.
Yeah.
I had a different understanding of the groundwater testing that you had brought up last time. That I thought that was a issue of looking at groundwater levels in areas where there might be replication, to see if it's viable, how to help understand whether the areas where we're trying to do replication would be able to sustain a sort of a wetland environment, so that I understood the soil testing that you brought up to pertain mainly to the sort of those greener areas, to see whether they're viable or how reasonable it is to think that we can actually achieve a replication in those areas. So that was different from what you're pursuing right now. I interpreted it differently. And one of the issues is, right, is how viable those areas are. And with the question of that we've always had is to what extent the berm that is referred to somehow is going to somehow keep the water in that area. That's the thing that we had, the sort of the other big hydrologic question was, how is that berm, other than, how does that play a role in changing the hydrology such that water would be retained somehow in that area? That's what I still have that's part of the viability of the replica.
Can I
Michael, I
interrupt?
think that
Can I
is
just-
more accurate. I think that's a good way to think about it. I was asking about it in the wetland area too, but it probably makes more sense to test it in the proposed area.
Can we put the
I-
questions on the screen, please?
Sure. Or you
just-
could do it, and I could do it.
It would be easier to, if we
Well, the
all
que-
saw exactly what comments we sent him, and
Yeah, okay,
it don't make more
you,
sense to me.
can you see it now? So that's, that's what I was thinking, to go over the comments one by one, and
Well,
then maybe we can elaborate from that comments, so to discuss rather than jumping into discussion, so.
okay, fine. If you want to switch screens to that, or I can do it. What do you want to do?
I already turned on, unless you cannot see it, because I have that response, so you can.
Oh,
see
no,
my response.
I still see the plan.
You still see the plan? Oh, okay, let's see. maybe I have to change the screen too. So I have to stop sharing. I saw that. I
You have
can
to
just-
stop, yeah, you'll have to stop sharing and then do it again, so that's
Oh,
the way it works
sorry.
with Zoom.
I see. I saw
Or
that.
else,
Okay,
you-
yeah, I have some response
There we go.
be reviewed,
Okay.
so that will help.
great.
Okay, so yeah, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't know that. Oh, I probably, okay, so the first comment is the topographic survey only covers the area of the proposed septic system needed. So we extended to all the proposed, including replication, alteration, everything. So that one is just a data perspective. Provide spots, elevations, and proposed grading for the replication area, house, and the driveway. We did that, so we just we can go a little bit. But first, let me say we will provide and finalize that. We can discuss a little bit in some details when we are aware of it. Unless you guys want to take a quick look of the plan for the grading, it's provided. So then I will have to stop and then go back again. So let's go through the comments. Then we can go. I wish I can do a side-by-side comparison. It would be much easier, but it doesn't allow us to do that.
You actually can do that if you
Huh?
put them side by side on your screen and then just share the whole screen. You actually can do it, but I'm not sure I want to go through a tutorial of that now.
Okay, that's probably, yeah, okay. Okay, I have to figure out how to share the whole screen.
It comes up on the side, on the left side, when you go to share screen, you'll see these big one. You might see a big sort of one there, but I'm not
Okay.
sure how much.
You want me to try it, or you want?
No,
to
no,
go through?
I'm fearful, but.
Let's just not do that if we can, and just go over the
Okay,
comments on
The
the
comments. Okay, all right. So that's if that's the way. Let's keep on going. The number 3 is try to minimize the impact to the existing isolated wetland by a combination of moving the house forward toward the street and the shifting the berm. So removing the anchor points that's we all considered, which resulted in 66% reduction of the existing isolated wetland alteration from 1,124 square feet to 377. So I think that's pretty good. I mean, as soon as I saw that, I think that's a brilliant recommendation. I wish I considered. So I don't know whoever, but that's really helped. So I really appreciated this comment recommendation. Number 4, elevations of the replication area should be similar to the field wetlands and provide an unrestricted connections to the wetland resource. Definitely the connection is our goal, and there's no restriction, and we know. So the one I would like to discuss a little bit is, as I just explained a little, this wetlands is groundwater recharge wetlands. So it's because we have a thick top AP, loamy, high nutrients soil, which can easily support the one we saw there, sensitive burn. And because of the compaction, whatever the activity go in there, and the water resource from the well during the last 10 years, whatever, did produced valid hydrology to sustain this isolated area. So therefore, it is my opinion, it's not the matching the grades is the key. It's a whole to direct the water from top where the well come down to where the replication relatively uniformly distributing as much as we can to all the wetlands, both existing and proposed, because we don't want to direct too much water away from the existing, and then so you're creating wetlands, but then dry up.
I'm gonna interrupt you to get to this critical thing that we come up each time.
Yeah.
How does this berm or whatever you're gonna do achieve any sort of direction, retention, any kind of physical?
Yes, that's a very good
Control
question.
of the water has been the nagging issue for.
Yeah,
for
so
a while.
right, no, Mike, that's a very good question. So as we all now know that I mean, since I thought I can see the gradient, you can see too, but you can't. So, well, I have to explain. Okay, so we for the groundwater recharge, almost like an recharge basin, things like that. So the surface water flow right now, you can see it. The water pretty much follow a mild slope, run on the surface, and around the way, the soils just take as much water as their permeability allow them to sucking in. The excessive water, they cannot go into the ground. They will flow to the downstream, down gradient area. And that the water flow into the down gradient area, there will be a balance. So the water going into the ground that can sustain a moisture level that to creating so-called anaerobic condition, which support wetland growth, it will become wetlands. If you just get some water onto soils, but you don't create an aerobic condition, it will be just like you will see wherever upland area receive all the rainfalls, but they cannot turn them into wetlands. Okay, so that's basically a significant difference is we anywhere on land, because of the rain or flow, they always receive water, but they just don't receive enough water to create an aerobic condition. So here we have a water source coming from the top point down to the point. They just lasted long enough, and but you go further down gradient, they just don't have enough. And then so after we understand that perspective, then you say, okay, I'm sure there's some water also past the existing wetland limit to the down gradient upland area, but it's just not enough to create a wetland condition. So if we can intercept that water right now, bypassing the wetlands and getting into the upland area, so it means it's going to retain more water that the wetland can be used. So just that.
Just that last sentence, how would that actually physically work?
The physical is that the burn, because the water flowing on the surface rather than go through a soil, it's just 100 or even 1,000 times slower. So you just need to slow that, but you still need to let the water go into the ground to where the wetlands is. So the berm is not, it's like about a foot high. So but it's enough to providing good storage to retain the water rather than let the water go bypass to the upland area downgraded. And actually
that berm is going to be cited to RUP, but just try to get it for all of, I'm assuming my understanding is probably similar to others, that berm, I don't know what particular soils or material, what will that berm be such that it sort of slows it or retains it somehow, as you said, that would either sort of allow it to sort of flow off to the sides or just slow down its flow. Is that it's almost like, is it a clay? I'm trying to think of what it is that would actually just what the berm would be that would somehow not just allow it to permeate into and under the berm as opposed to go to the sides as you're.
Yeah, it's a good question. Yes, well, it's as you know, all soils berm will have water retaining function. So compare with wide open surface flow, any berm will providing the water retaining function is just more or less. And the whole to using the clay, I personally, since we have so much.
I'm not advocating that.
Right. Okay. So then the other question. So since as you see later on, we can go over. Since we're going to mount around the house, actually we can divert some the roof runoff and more toward the wetland too. So because when the water get more direct into the wetland replication and wetland area, whatever they cannot use will eventually bypass it. But so in a way, if you don't have enough water, that's a problem. But since it's a still shallow open on the end, the water you directing our roof, clean roof runoff, and we can design it to at the back of the house that flow, since we are raising the grades around the house, pitching to the wetlands with some mechanism. So that water will go to the replication area, sustain them. If they cannot use it, they will bypass, flow by on the side of it. So that's, I think, combined with the berm and directing some of the house roof runoff, I'm pretty confident definitely is going to sustain or making the wetland hydrology in the wetlands much more sustainable than the current condition, open drain condition. That's
Okay.
that's what I can.
Right, we'll go there. We can go through the rest of the list after this, but
Yeah.
Carol.
Okay. Good.
You can
Okay.
speak
So
now, and then we can move on, but let Carol go if she had a relevant question to this, and you're on mute, Carol.
Probably, I guess, to Shang, one thing I'd ask you is if there's some established technique you can share with us, or some, example of this kind of replication that worked over time. I think that might be another way to help us understand that this will be successful. I know each site is different, but it's kind of like, it feels a little bit like we'd be taking a chance that this would work.
yeah,
Without
that's a legit concern. So that's looking from another direction of this condition. So the remaining wetlands, which is over almost 1,200, which is 66% of the existing wetlands, which will remain exactly the condition as it is. So there's no reason we need to doubt that will not continue. And plus, we are putting some plaque at the bottom to retain more water. So it means that existing wetland is going to get more water. So we just say, since we get more, but we don't need to let the water spread further down, and we graded the two sides of replication area can also receive that water, the water can flow. So at this, say, okay, it should be able to sustain the same amount of wetlands area as existing, because there's not, so from the water budget as perspective, because the water coming, the proposed replication area is a similar flowing path distance to the source of the water. Okay, and so if we can add in some more to it, so there's just another assurance. And if you ask me, to be honest with you, I haven't really creating, because this is a Mother Nature created. I haven't really was requested, or in any job I need to create groundwater recharge wetland, except failed infiltration basins. I'm not failed, or didn't design it right. We're supposed to do, not us. I saw in other places, if you design a stormwater recharge basin, and you're thinking that recharge basin will dry or quickly maintain an upland, and then the water coming in, and because it's more than the subsoils can take, they turn them into some kind of groundwater recharge wetlands. Okay, that's what isolated stormwater recharge wetlands. So that's one I saw, but if you want me to give any real example, I have to be honest with you, I haven't really been coming into a situation I have to do that. This is probably the first case I have to create groundwater recharge wetlands, because it's already, Mother Nature already created it as an experiment in the past 10 years due to the lack of maintenance. And so it will be interesting to follow through down the road if the commission wants to see. But the best I can do from my professional knowledge and experience is to providing a design at this step, intuitively, I know it will retain more water than existing for the wetlands. And then I can add in some additional water resource, which right now is not available or didn't go to the wetlands from the loop. Okay, that's
I'm
all
gonna
I
say
can.
that's an interesting option. Why don't we go through the rest of the questions and then come back?
Okay, all right. So I hope that addressed some of
Yes.
Carol's question and concern, and it may not to her satisfaction, but that's the best I can provide you at this point. Elevations, as I just explained, we will tune it. So during the construction, we have to tune to get the water almost like a level spreader. I don't want to take in too much water away from the existing wetlands, but it's just enough to mimic the flow path as the current wetlands pass into the downstream. And the replication ratio, I know, so to follow up the same question, and I like to trim. If you're asking me if I don't add in any more water into the replication area, just intuitively, we can only sustain the same area as you have. Because you cannot say, I only have that much food, but I want to feed more people. You have to make sure I can feed more people with the same food. I can't. I don't want to pretend I could. We have a little competing requirements. As once I have to sustain, I've tried to do it, and but you want me to 100% guarantee. It's probably a little bit. I want to see we get to walk in this journey together to find it out down the road. And so 1.5 to 1, we do 1.7 to 1, but I want to trim down as close as possible because as a groundwater recharge wetlands, I need to create as close to the existing one. And since if I cannot get in,
point taken. You can move on from there.
Okay. So number 6, the wetlands replication area is moving closer to the property line. That one I just explained to you. So we almost
went over that
mimic
one. That's
Yeah,
okay.
so yeah,
We've dealt
right.
with that.
Okay. And the goal to maximize protection of this and pour the proposed fence. So this one I think a little bit. So as I said, I add a row of trees in addition to the fence and the berm. I feel just to pull away. So if we can add in the tree for the mitigation tree to line up around the edge of the berm and fence, I feel it's a better, will provide shade and also reduce water evaporation in the wetlands. That's another mechanism of a safety guard or assurance.
What is going to be on top of the berm itself?
It's just we'll leave it like a seeded, like a wildflower seed next to seed on the loam. I would propose use a loam because loam is relatively less permeable. Here, as I explained to you, it's a Hinkley sand, which is it's permeable. It's a rapidly permeable sand soil. So means that this 20 inches of loam is the key to make this wetlands possible. If you
I see
remove
what you
that
mean.
loam,
Okay, the retention issue. Yes.
exactly. So I think it just use a loam and they use a wildflower
Okay.
native mix to seed it. That's I think it's
I can't tell whether there's an issue of whether a little bit more vegetation on the berm, but go on. Let's go through
okay.
this.
The house in the back, the plan needs to be revised to reflect existing and proposed contour. That's we already went through. So, and how do we know if there will be sufficient water source? We discussed that. So
Yes,
as
we're
I
through
said,
with that. You can move on.
okay. Number 10, what is the impact of the change in the isolated wetlands from a wet meadow to a shrub? Actually, I also covered that, explained it. So it's already invasive shrub coming in. I rather than to have a little bit enhancement, almost like invasive species control, to replace that with the native shrubs we proposed, which is okay.
We've dealt with
The
the next one
applicant,
too. Mhm.
right, number 11, the applicant desired not to move the house.
All right, you've
Actually,
already
I
dealt with
expect-
that one.
Yeah,
You've already
yeah,
gone
we
through
already
that.
moved forward 8.68 feet. So to have a balance, the goal will there be earth moving equipment behind the well? Where will the equipment be staged? where will material be stockpiled, will fuel be imported for the project. We will need to do a little bit more analysis to get in because we're going to excavate the foundation hole. We'll get some soils, but we need to get I don't have the number yet, but I don't understand it quite. There will be us moving equipment behind the well. Is the existing well we're talking about, or what? Which well?
Probably
I
the
don't
new
think
well. It's the new well where you're doing work. And then whether you're going to end up with compacting soils there. That's in the some of that. If I remember right, they see the new well is
Okay.
just outside of the 50-foot no
Okay.
alteration zone, and whether that you try to avoid compacting of soils.
Oh yeah, no, we don't have to. That after that well drilled, I don't think there's any good benefit for the owner to compact his soils, because that area will become his yard and it will have to be a lawn. So we probably have to keeping the soils aerated, and in that, if that's a concern, definitely we will not want to put in any equipment there to more than what we need to do the construction. After that, will be loam and seeded.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I will provide, because I'm not
Yes.
quite sure what I was not here and not quite understand, but that's a concern. Yeah, I don't think we will have
Right.
all
So
the
13 and
material.
14 we've done, and I guess 15 we'll see a cross section somewhere.
Yeah,
And 16, the trees you've marked.
Right.
17, any
Yeah.
mitigation,
5 trees will
behind-
will be planted. So three trees is going to be removed, and
Okay.
as we showed.
so we have to, right, part of this, right, obviously, we have to go, when we get the final plan, we'll be able to study it more closely.
Sure.
We've gone through that. I guess the only thing I'll say before I open it up a little bit more is that I'll say at first, on some higher level, this is clearly, I appreciate the responsiveness of some of the changes to what we talked about, and so I appreciate all the changes that you guys have put together here in response to this. And before I open up, I guess I'll ask a little bit whether you'll describe. I mean, I get concerned about when you're working there and doing the replication, what exactly you'll be doing, and that you could document. We need it written down, what you'll be doing in the replication areas, like how much you'll be moving or not in terms of soils. Part of me is concerned about disturbing natural soils to create the replication area creates its own damage in its own right. Just saying it's a replication area doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be so much better if you're going to disturb a lot of existing natural soils that have developed over the decades or centuries. And so I guess there'll be a concern, my concern at least, is what we're going to be gaining from some of that, and what it's going to be like, how much you're going to really take off a foot or two of soil, and like when you're doing the replication off to the left, the new area that you're proposing, that I get a little concerned about how useful that'll be, but so that I'll just say overall, I appreciate what's here. I just have some concerns there, and making sure without the map up here that we get some good protection of the no alteration zone to the left and the right is going to be also critical if you want to put the plan up.
Right. That's what I'm trying to.
But then I guess I don't know what actual grading or any actual work you'll be doing in those replication areas in terms of any I guess maybe you can quickly say again whether you wanted to actually take down 6 inches or how you were dealing with the area on the left.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think the way I'm going to come in, I've been looking at it, we are creating the replication area, kind of hugging the existing one. And the advantage, I didn't put it on the same side to making too wide for several reasons. One is trying to avoid any creating the buffer impact to beyond as much to the neighboring end. And also, I was also considering the construction sequencing perspective. So you can see the beauty is the whole surrounding area is kind of already disturbed. So we can get the machine to skim off like 6 inches to probably 10 inches of the soils out, and at the same time clean all the invasive species almost without really need to go in driving in too much. That's I think so to avoid significant disturbance to it. But we'll have to revisit the site during construction to see how can we a smaller machine is probably okay. Track mounted machine, they're not going to kill all the plants because they're coming back. You won't believe, just probably next year. So as long as we don't get all the roots uprooted and can be picked up the invasive plant and with a small bobcat or track mounted bobcat getting in and just planting all the shrubs. And I feel there should be no significant impact.
Yeah, but you're less that issue than that like the 244 square feet of replication. What's not detailed yet is that you're looking to take off about 6 or 12 inches. And
Right.
And what, you're gonna scrape off the loam, you're gonna then go below, you're gonna put the top, the organic, the A layer back. What do you think what is the actual sort of construction sequence that you think is gonna make this a successful effort? With all of that, just to lower it down a foot that you think will somehow therefore be maybe closer to groundwater and create a more wetland condition, I guess, than the fact that it's a foot higher now, I guess is what you're.
No, actually, yeah, this is the confusing part. As I explained it, this is the groundwater recharge. So it means the water is coming from up, above, down. So the grading is not for bring the groundwater closer to the plants because the water is sustained from the surface down. So it means the grading is mainly to creating a flow path. The water coming from the well or from the one we are going to direct on the roof will be relatively distributed to all the area. That's the challenge from the grading.
So without that soil on the top, it's going to somehow change that dynamic there. Are you going to replace it? You're just lowering it? Are you replacing it?
So this area on average have 20 inches of it. If I can achieve it by just 6 inches of grading adjustment, that's probably we'll try to do, because the less you take it away, the better. Because
I'm concerned about whether.
Yeah, I think I don't technically, because of groundwater recharge wetlands, you don't want to dig it out, because after you dig it out, you loosen the soils.
No, you don't have to say that. I just wanted
the water will leaking down much quicker. It's actually hurting. So I just want to skim it at the top and making sure the water can flow. That's all we should do. Because if you and a little bit compaction it actually helps, because it helps us to retain the water.
To write a description of that. Let's put it
this
way.
Yeah, okay. So
you need a description of what it is you're going to actually do in those two areas, so that we're clear about how we condition this.
Right. I think it will require on-site sun supervision to make sure this is not the one you want to loosen the soils, because some of the infiltration basin soil improvement is they found the water cannot go is because people compact too much, they create a wetlands, then they having people go back there, scruff it, so the water will go down.
No,
so we don't want that.
I'm concerned about that kind of stuff. But
this is
and some of it could be site-based. I mean, we could have some leeway to see.
Right. Yeah, the
project
construction
moves ahead.
sequence, I think, is the construction sequencing plan we will
Yeah,
to
that's
address
gonna,
the concern.
that'll probably be the biggest discussion for next time as we try. to
Okay,
move
yeah, the
forward on this.
construction sequencing, we will make sure
Yeah,
we will elaborate to
Okay, I'm
address
going to
this
stop here and open it up to each of the other members of the commission to see what questions they would have as we move forward, so we can get to some closure and what people are reacting to this. Obviously, once we get all the information, who knows what'll come up. Okay, Jacob, start.
One question, I don't remember if we talked about it before. On the current plan, I didn't see any monuments marking the I guess the new delineation of the wetland or of the new no alteration zone boundary. Is that going to be part of the plan, or is it there and I just missed it?
If I understand it, so the one we do the fence is to creating this isolated wetland condition, but we still, as current condition, the house is only 9.7 feet to the wetlands. So we are creating a scenario we can.
My question is, in many other projects, we've asked for monuments marking the border of the, I forget what it says, but saying essentially beyond here is a wetland.
Limit of future disturbance, but here the limit of future disturbance will be demarcated by this fence, and we add in the line of trees and shrubs around it. The berm is physical as like in demarcation. The monument is a demarcation for not necessarily just the limit of 50 feet. It's just the limit of approved limit of disturbance. So it can be even sometimes it can be further away from 50 feet, but for this case, it will be a little bit in the 50 feet, given the existing site condition as we I don't want to say agreed, but that's what I take from our previous RDA. And
what I'm hearing from that is that you don't want to put a wetland monument marker anywhere.
No, the fence is, so
We can keep the markers on the fence.
Open. If you want to, in addition to the fence, if the commission think we need to put in a couple of more concrete monuments to be more support, we have no objection, but I feel the fence is more obvious to be seen than like in a sporadic.
Well, to that point, I guess, one of the issues going to be protecting more of the no alteration zone? The way the fence, for example, whether you're open, and for your thinking, to the left, right, where the fence has the markers on them or the monument or not, we can talk about, but whether, for example, on the left side, where the fence curls around the replication area of about 535 square feet, whether there's any reason that to protect more of the no alteration zone, I guess there's no work beyond, I guess I'm not quite sure.
We're not proposing any work there.
But you're doing a bit of work back there, let's say, whether you can protect to the left there, where your hand is there, come back, you went too far out. That whole area in there.
Yeah.
Whether there's any reason that you need to be doing work there, since it's part of the no alteration zone, and that we can.
The stone wall, maybe, yeah, the stone wall there probably can be acting as that function.
I mean, so that we can bring the protected area further out, even though a lot of it has, some of that area has been disturbed. You can zoom in a little bit more. It might be easier to see, stopping there. But
we say no work beyond.
I mean,
so,
even if there's any reason that you see where the tree line is, I'm not sure what's underneath the tree line, but how much of that area there, of the tree lined area, that you can protect as part of being in the no alteration zone. I would suggest that fence could possibly be brought out to be protecting much more of the no alteration zone around this wetland. Even if it went due west from even the extreme of just even
bring it to the stone
or
wall?
even further down, whether there's any reason to protect more of that area, even though I think some of it's already been previously altered. but you could, I would say,
We are not proposing anything into that area anyhow, so.
right, I
that-
mean,
that's-
there's the whole tree line and whether, to what extent that could be protected is what I'm putting forth to you to figure out as much as possible, since that's also in the, it's also to some extent unaltered buffer, and so just protecting as part of the mitigation for even the wetlands, since we don't know how well the replication will do, that even as mitigation, protecting more of that tree line area there, even below where you drew the red line, would be to the advantage of the wetlands in general there and their functionality. So I would suggest that that fence could be brought even right where you're talking about now. I just want to put that forth as something there. And again, on the other side, you could flatten out the fence line, even though I don't know where the limit of lawn is there.
Yeah, I would allow a little bit, so just.
That's
probably
something
like
for you guys to think about.
Yeah.
I think that would give much more of the no alteration zone protected.
Okay.
And it would bring back into protection some areas that probably were not, were already altered before.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's
And-
good,
but
good
That could be
suggestion.
something a little flattening it out on the other side too, even to do that, but I don't know how much you're trying to do lawn all the way up to.
Yeah, so
fence.
here we were trying to straighten that out. So
Yeah.
this fence was brought up to here and we adding trees there, so.
Okay, it's something to think about on the other side as well.
Yeah,
one other-
try to relatively straighten line because, so
Yeah.
if we can, I will try to see, so maybe if we can from here straighten up and smooth it out, then you
That's
have a
just
well
my 2
defined
cents on
line.
that issue that Jacob started.
One- One
ahead.
other question that I have is that the two types of shrubs you're proposing to add, the high bush blueberry and winterberry, both of those, neither of those require wetland conditions in order to grow well. So I wonder if you might consider including some perhaps ground cover plants that will give us a better indication of whether the replication is actually working, so that we can look at that sort of in the post-construction phase,
Yeah,
in between then and the final closing order, to understand sort of how effective that how whether we're actually seeing wetland plants thrive in that region.
Yeah, the ground cover, we will try to, the construction sequence as we explained. So the wetland to be filled, we are going to harvest some of the top ground cover soils, rhizome roots, so we will transplant it, putting into the replication area, and which is already adopted to the on-site condition. I feel it's worth to do. The transplanting always be preferred method is because they already adopted. If you introduce something, you are not 100% sure how that will work, but we know that's that at least that 377 square feet, we don't have to we can spread a little bit out because the seed itself, especially the sensitive fern seeds, if you buy it, there's tons of sensitive fern seeds there. It would be spread out. They already mature, growing. So we have 2 years to establish. So I can write that into it. My plan is to use the existing ground cover to transplant that into the area.
Other people, Carol, let's go through the rest of the commission.
Yeah.
Are you through, Jacob? Okay,
I'm
Yeah, I'm
happy to
set.
wait. If somebody else has a comment, I can wait and you can circle back to me, Michael.
sure. Steve, go. Unmute. Unmute.
There we go. Just to piggyback on Jacob's point just then, some of this is the new commissioners the whole project is a kind of a complicated thing, but it seems obvious to me that planning or putting in wetland indicator plants is a good way to see if it's working or not. And I'm not sure if the plants that are being transplanted or proposed being transplanted are Are they natives? Are they not natives? Are they? Well, I just be wondering what those plants are and if they'd be enough to answer the question, is this functioning as a wetland?
That's a good question, Steve. Yes, the wetland plants we identifying there include the sensitive fern, soft thrush, Joe Pye weed, and the goldenrod. So that's a very typical major components if you go to buy ground cover seeds from New England wetland seed mix. So when we transplant there, we will monitor that process. So to make sure the native wetland ground cover, it's a good indicator. I 100% agree. If we made it successful, you should see those plants thriving there. If it's not, that's probably something we can tweak in the monitoring process. As I said, this is a really special situation, and I definitely welcome the commission to walk the journey with us to see this through. So during the monitoring, so I will do my best in the design process, as I just explained, the water resource, and then plus the plan, including the shrubs and the ground cover.
Is the
Yeah, they're all
Winterberry
native.
Fact Plus? Is Winterberry Fact Plus? I mean, it's growing in my wetlands, but
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I mean, it's happy to
Winterberries,
grow in wetlands, but it's also
Yeah.
happy in uplands.
yeah, okay.
they can grow some in upland, but that's why it's a good adoptive plant. This here I feel would make sense. So even including the plants I explained, the sensitive fern, I have seen sensitive fern and cinnamon fern things grow on pile of loam. Okay, in
Right.
pile of
Well,
loam.
why don't you just take the advice that when you fine tune this thing, that you stick in something that might be sort of more of an indicator, as Steve and Jacob said.
Yeah,
And mix that in so that we might have a little bit of feedback on this experiment.
Yeah, of course.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's just a point for you to put into your, when you clean up things. Others, Steve, did you have anything more?
No.
Okay, Courtney or Kurt or Matt?
I don't have anything to add.
No, nothing to add for me.
Matt?
Nothing here.
The Carol then?
Did you say Carol?
Yeah, yes, sorry if I swallowed that word.
That was okay. And I feel like I'm still not clear on how much of the do not disturb, the 50 foot is being disturbed, Deshang.
If you look in the Waverly line, that's existing disturbance area, including the wetlands, was in the disturbance area. So even disturbance, as said, because it's abandoned, so obviously for at least to me, so 10 years or so, so all the ground cover coming in, including some shrubs. And
It's reverted to fields, right? So how
Right.
much of how many square feet are being?
I don't have the square
Wow.
footage, but you can see on the joints, the split fence is going to be acting as a future barrier, and might just discussed it, and also from Jacob's concern, I like in sketched in the area to including this area or into the future no disturb zone to be protected. So that's what we are going to roughly like in that. So that, and then so below that will be the yard. So we'll restore back to the yard condition.
Yeah, so I guess, I mean, just as a rough estimate, it looks to me like between a quarter, I mean, about a third of that area looks like it's going to be restored to yard conditions, but then I would subtract the area of the existing house. So maybe about a quarter of the area is going from this kind of 10-year-old regrowth habitat back to yard conditions. I guess, for that reason, I would think that we would look for more ways to protect not only the 0 to 50, but even like if there's a way to permanently protect the 50 to 100 as a way of addressing the fact that that much of the do not disturb zone is being removed. I think, Deshang, you could think about that because it just happens that this entire site is like just so close to the wetlands that a lot of it's being protected. And so we want to have some intact buffer. When I was there, I thought, gosh, I bet in the spring, this could be a peeper pond or something, and that all of those kinds of critters need some upland habitat. They don't just stay in their little tiny ponds all summer long. So I guess I hear what the conversation, the discussion back and forth with Michael, and I would like to see more effort in that direction. And then I would just say I wanted to understand how you understand the hydrology situation, because you've been referring to this as kind of like a groundwater wetlands. What was the term you've been using?
Groundwater recharge. So in a way,
groundwater recharge. So
right.
To me, a groundwater recharge sounds a little bit like you're saying that it's being recharged by groundwater.
No.
And we also have the situation of the artesian well. So maybe you can clarify what a groundwater recharge wetland is.
Yeah, okay. So groundwater recharge wetlands means the groundwater almost was like in purged water supporting condition. And that they are like in leaking the water into the true groundwater below them. Okay, so groundwater discharge, it means you have groundwater discharge into the wetlands to sustain the wetlands. And so you can literally, cranberry bark, right? So, well, I don't know whether really people, there's lots of cranberry barks was created in the upland area, but they diverted so much water to it, flooded up. So they're making, at the same time, they're still in the upland area. If they cut off that water resource, they will go back as a upland. But since they're diverting enough water to it, they can create in cranberry bark, which is 100% wetlands. Okay, so this is that area similar to cranberry bark, but it's not quite extreme. It's the water coming from the artesian well overflow, and they have this thick, kind of 18-20 inch of loam, which is a low permeability, and then they created the anaerobic condition that the wetland plants like, so they coming in. So whenever, if you reading the wetlands delineation handbook or any wetlands the biology, hydrology, that's just I think it's probably even in the Wetland Protection Act, they say the wetlands, there's several features. So they have the indicator soils, hydrology, and vegetation, the three things, but those are just secondary indication. The driven force for wetlands formation is hydrology. So it means water. If you don't have water, you cannot have wetlands. So the other, right?
Can we pause for a minute here? Carol, did that sort of answer your question enough that you could go in?
Yes, I think what I'm going to take away from that, Deshang, is that essentially the water collected in a low area and it got absorbed by 15 to 20 inches of loam, creating kind of an anaerobic condition. And that's what created the wetlands. Is that correct? And it's being constantly replenished by the artesian spring.
Very good. You definitely summarized better I can do.
Okay, so did you have other questions, Carol?
No, I think, I share many of the same questions, and I my biggest question definitely is whether this berm would potentially hold back the water enough to create
Well, we'll find out. I guess, but probably, I think as an overall sense, I would still make the comment again, even building that, just when you start drawing the lines around there, that when you come back and finalize the plan for our next meeting, that even when you start that protecting more of the no alteration zone and even some of the outer buffer zone, like for example, you draw your red line along the the green line going up on the right, as opposed to you could be drawing that line up along the new proposed one, the pinkish line, or cutting across that. Basically, that's all buffer zone. So to the extent that you can protect more stuff on the left and the right, that you think about maximizing all of that, and you can go beyond the no alteration zone even, to the extent that that's property that you'd like to leave unaltered, because it's maybe unaltered now, but maybe previously, that you just consider maximizing what you can protect. You don't necessarily have to have a fence there. We can go to a few monuments so that you don't have to go into a fencing arrangement when you get further off to the left or so. But I would just suggest that maximizing that area and protecting that would be useful for the viability of this wet area, and mitigate, as well as mitigation for what you're doing. So that moving forward, I guess, so those kind of changes there, some of the things here. The other people on the commission, in terms of moving forward, since we have to move on. Other people have any other major concerns? Because I think we're moving in a direction where I can at least see something that is permittable. So I just want to make sure that anybody doesn't have any other big problems as we move forward. We might have some comments on the vegetation or the planting and stuff, but we can always condition a project where some of the vegetation choices can be made later with commission or agent approval. I just want to make sure that we're all heading in the right direction here, and nobody's going to see any major problems with trying to refine something finish something at our next meeting. And again, my major concerns are just what's the construction sequence that you're really going to do for these things here, and maximizing as much of the buffer zone that can be protected. We'll see if we have other comments after we talk, but okay. Is there anything else before we I continue this hearing to the next time, so that we can get all the
Micah, I would just say that given the change in elevation there, given the idea of this berm, that we're not familiar with it working, again, I'd say, before I'd be convinced this would work, I'd like to see some evidence that it has worked elsewhere. I don't know how you.
I'll be blunt and say, I don't think we're going to get that. He's already said that he doesn't have it. We're going to have, he's calling it an experiment. I'll go out on a limb and say here that he doesn't have that kind of information. This is going to be an experiment like some other things we've tried. And I think that, there's some logic there about how the water will be hopefully slowed down and start going to the sides. And that I don't think we're going to get anything beyond that.
Well, there's been a lot of research on wetland replication. So I don't know that I would agree with you that it would be impossible to find that.
Well, he could try. I don't expect to see it given the peculiarities of this site. But Steve, what were we going to say?
Well, I just have a question. I would hope this would succeed, but if it failed, what would be the recourse?
Okay, that's a good question. As I tried to explain it, with the same water resource, and we are not going into the wetland to alter them anymore. So, and this is, I don't really even think it would require rocket science to, so as I try to explain as much as I can.
Right. Can I just interrupt for a second? I think we're making this question more complicated than Steve intended it to be. I mean, everything's going to be in an order of conditions, and things are going to have to be monitored for a period of time. And if they're not compliant, like, I'm not saying you guys won't comply, but if the situation on the ground is not working out, then, changes can be made. So there will be a period of monitoring built into this. That's pretty standard.
And to get a certificate of compliance, we'll have to find something that works for everybody.
Right. And I'm also going to go out on a limb and say that we've discussed all of these points to death. And I think Desheng has a pretty good idea at this point of what the major issues are. And so like Michael said, if there's something new that you have, speak now or forever hold your peace. But if it's something that's already been said, we don't need to re-emphasize it again because it's already been an hour and 15 minutes.
Is everybody holding their peace? I move that we continue the hearing. Deborah, do we have any other hearings, RDAs or NOIs for the next meeting scheduled?
Yes, we may have one that is probably going to be delivered tomorrow. I think she's making it an NOI. I can't really discuss it because I haven't seen it, but yes, there will be another one, Michael.
So there'll be another NOI. So we have to figure out the scheduling of whether we do this. So we want to wrap this up next time. Whether we whether to play it safe with the other things. I think whether to make it at 8 or 8:15 and do the other one first. But we don't know what we don't know what the scope of the other one is. Do we, Deborah? Do we know what it is for even?
I believe it is goodness gracious.
Septic related?
Hmm?
Is it
No.
What is it for?
Yeah. A property 0 Karen Catron.
Yeah, Catroni.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, can I suggest an alternative approach since we don't have that one yet and we have this
Right.
one before us, let's just slot this in first.
And then we could always.
And we'll figure out how much time
Okay,
we need
done.
when the next one comes in.
Yep.
Done. Okay, so let's see, let's see, I don't know if the land management is gonna be on the, whether we're gonna talk about the trails. Do we, which would be nice to deal with. We can do it, how about at 7:45?
Mhm.
Okay. I move, does that work for the applicant? 7:45 at the next meeting, which is December
First.
Yeah, one.
1st. How
Okay.
does it work for
Yes.
everybody else? Shang, Mr. Denny,
Yeah, yeah, that's fine. And so we'll try to, I know it's a like a, but I think it sounds like if you guys still have anything, try to pass into us as soon as you
Okay.
can, so we can.
fine, it's December, fine, I move that we continue the hearing to 7:45 on December 1st.
Second,
Thank you.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Michael, aye. Steve,
Aye.
Jacob,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Kurt,
Aye.
Courtney,
aye.
Carol.
I was muted, or I would have said during discussion that I just put into the chat, Massachusetts does have guidelines for inland wetland replication. So this is not an unknown science. And I did put that in the chat for Desheng and for the commission members to look at, and presumably that it'll give us some guidance.
Mhm.
Carol, I aware of that, and I know that
Good.
most of the wetlands people
Okay.
doing, yeah. it's
I'm
around-
we done
okay, I'm
voting?
stopping this. This is the end.
Are
We
we
are
done
moving
voting?
on.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Carol, for doing that.
You're welcome.
Okay, moving on. You can stop sharing. Okay, let's go here. Going back to our agenda, where are we here? Okay. Done the things there. I'm gonna run down a few things here.
Discussion time?
It's discussion and other things. First, I like to get the administrative approvals out of the way. We have 4 of them on the agenda. I'll just read it for the record. That we had 227 Western Ave, a septic and well replacement was outside of jurisdiction. We have lot 1 of Bogastaw Brook Road, some new house construction that's outside of jurisdiction. 18 Peckham, I thought it was Peckham Hill
It is Peckham.
Road. The soil testing outside of jurisdiction and 156 Nason Hill Road. A retaining wall for a new house construction is outside of jurisdiction. Okay, so we've dealt with those there. Moving under discussions. We have the announcements. We would like to give out a congratulations to Jacob for completing the fundamentals training program. I would say he's probably set a record for Sherborn for a new member completing them all. So I'm
I
impressed.
think that's because of the timing where you
Yeah.
can sign up for all of them and have it be and not have to leave your house in order to complete it. I think that's the key.
Right, that's true. The age of Zoom allows all sorts of things. So encourage others, and people want to know which ones they liked or the value of some of them. Please reach out to Jacob, and you can get some feedback about which ones he might recommend or as higher priority than others. And Carol already sent out something about that a few weeks ago, some while ago too, about that. We don't have any minutes tonight. I don't think there's a warrant tonight. Unless Deborah interrupts me, but I haven't seen it. We have three quick things, and then we have three things here to get to. The affordable housing projects. That one should be quick. I am going to share the screen. Oh, what's going on back here? I'm going to share a screen. Because I did a draft letter based on, there's the very small projects. There are two of them. And as we've been following, there's two projects there's Greenwood Street Homes, or I'm not sure of the actual name there. I think it's a little different. That was the 4 homes that we talked about last time. That we were going to send in that one was much smaller. We discussed a letter a couple of meetings ago that I am now just want to finalize, which I have on the screen here, which I would like to see if people had any comments on, so we could finalize it and vote on it tonight, since we have to get it submitted in time. And then while you people are reading this or looking at it, there is the much larger project on Washington Street, the roughly probably 38 to 40 rental units. That there are some of the information is online that we're going to have to discuss more at length at our next meeting. So people need to look at that because we have to prepare comments for the Mass Housing Agency letter for that. So and there's always, and people should know, does everybody know where you can find all of the documents on land development on the Sherborn, on Sherborn's website, our town website? If you go to our town website, the homepage here, there's always the land development tab that you click on here. And then you can go into any of these things here to see the complete package of everything. For example, Washington Street is a new big one that we have to deal with. I don't know why my computer's so slow in pulling it up. But you click on them and you can get all the documents that have been submitted on that. Here they all are. I've extracted some of the more relevant ones and put them in a folder in our here under meetings now. Trying a new thing here where I've stuck a few folders here that have that. So therefore you can see some of you can either go to the town website, but I took one through the more relevant ones to our work here and stuck them here. But you can go back to the original source and do that. And similarly for Greenwood Homes, there's a lot of them there. Now going back to this. So please read up for the next meeting on the bigger Washington Street project. At some point, there'll be a site visit under Mass Housing. You'll all be notified.
Wait, it's already been announced, I thought.
Oh, is that the one? What is it for?
Yeah, and it's not Mass Housing because it's a rental. It's a different agency, I think.
That one is, so when is it? Oh, that's the one on the 21st, next week.
Yeah,
At 1 o'clock. I think I sent that out to everybody, I hope.
yes, you did.
Okay,
Yeah, I saw that. I can't make it.
yeah. But
You've
okay,
already seen the site quite a bit.
that's right. Okay. I'm gonna shut up. Please give me comments on this letter so that we can vote and finalize.
The last two sentences of the first paragraph look, something's wrong with them. I'm not quite sure what they're
Okay.
supposed to say.
Who knows? I was trying to write this quickly and get this done, but this which paragraph?
First paragraph, last two sentences. It says there of the four lots. It's in the first sentence, and then the second sentence doesn't have an ending.
Oh, wow, what happened?
I'm sure you meant to say 3 of the 4 lots.
Yes,
And then obviously the last sentence is not fully developed.
I guess I ran out of gas when I went back.
Yeah.
Let's see. Where's the 3? Okay, I'm gonna make this a little larger here. It's embarrassing, but so it's
Right after claw.
Oh yeah, 3 of the 4 lots. Okay, maybe I don't even need. Maybe this was a sentence that I don't think I need. I guess, or I could say. I can add something here like,
Michael, do you want to say something like once the plans are fully developed, including landscaping plans? Because that's probably the most likely to infringe on the buffer.
well, I'm actually more concerned about septic and any stormwater, but
Okay.
I think I tried to just have those are the 3 things down below.
Mhm.
Okay, I mean, I could just drop the sentence. Regarding, I could just summarize the 3 things below. Doesn't have to be
Regarding
perfect.
impacts on wetlands, so, and
Yeah,
I mean, were you just intending to say that once the full plans are submitted, we may have additional comments?
yeah, but that's,
Yeah,
but that's irrelevant at this point.
Right,
It's
right.
for mass housing.
yeah.
But I guess in the end, it's all down here in these 3 things here. That's why I'm almost saying that because right now they don't have any activity specialists. I'm gonna just delete it for simplicity.
Yeah. I mean, I think I agree with you on these 3 points because it's not a
We
huge
wouldn't.
wetlands issue, this project.
It wouldn't be till later in the project where we would know where the actual locations of the septic systems.
Just so you know,
Correct.
this is, in the end, this will come before us for a notice of intent.
Yeah,
We'll issue an order of conditions. This is just purely, none of these issues really, I mean, in a way, for the mass housing letter, this is like if there's some major concerns that where mass housing would weigh in and say you should make some alterations or something like, we don't like the design here, or wow, you should move things out because you might be seriously impacting the wetlands. This letter is almost, the issues for us are so minor at this point that it's just a matter of highlighting that we don't want them to put stuff in the buffer zone.
Yeah, okay. That
Michael, did you notice there's something missing in number 2? There's a grammatical problem.
If I noticed it, I would have caught it.
I think there's the
no,
word
yeah, I see it.
Stormwater related
maybe
infrastructure activity.
impact something. On number 3, I would maybe strengthen it a little bit. The conversion of any buffer zone to landscaping and/or lawn can be detrimental. I mean, we know it generally is detrimental unless people are super, super careful of like, wow, we're just going to landscape this with native shrubs. So that seems, saying it can be detrimental feels a little bit weak.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, by all means, pot
Okay,
shot.
the workshop that Jake and I did on the science behind buffer zones, clearly, that's basically a network of vernal pools back there, functionally vernal pools anyways. And all the amphibians and many, there's many animals that need that upland buffer. So if you convert to lawn, you're not conserving. Do we have any jurisdiction over that? Knowing that it's going to be detrimental to specific amphibians?
You're bringing up something that even though it's not strictly like we don't have a 200-foot buffer to the vernal pool, it might be worth just simply noting that, that there's a vernal pool in the area, and vernal pool amphibians typically require, substantial upland to thrive or something. I know that then we're not saying, oh, it needs X amount of upland, but I think it would
we
be.
don't have any jurisdiction outside.
Yeah.
We don't have any jurisdiction outside of the 100 feet.
I know.
And mass housing doesn't care about the amphibians.
Well, that's would make a difference what they care about. We have to make our stand anyway. So that I don't agree with, but I would say will be detrimental to the I'll just say will be detrimental in the fact that we can't do much beyond the 100-foot buffer zone. At this point, they're not proposing anything in the buffer zone. So there's nothing for us to really highlight other than
Exactly.
there.
Michael, what about just saying something like, at the end of 3, adding another sentence that says something like adjacent wetlands include a certified vernal pool? That doesn't say anything about our.
Yes, but that's going to be an issue for the next project. That
That's
the
this
vernal
is
pool
on
is
the
so
other
far
side.
away.
Oh, is
on
it
the other
closer
side.
to the other side? Okay.
Along Greenwood Street.
We will
That-
Well,
have a
having
lot
walked
more to
those
say about
years
this.
ago,
What?
that whole thing is functionally, there are vernal pool animals in all of those wetland areas back there. There's.
But unfortunately, it's not called a we didn't call it a vernal pool, or it's not delineated as a vernal pool. So that I think that saying, I feel like, I mean, people could decide as a whole. Don't feel like adding much more, especially it's not worth a lot more time for this letter here, I think, in terms of what
Maybe
impact.
not for that letter, but functionally, if you look at the animals in those vernal pools, they will be in those pools or network of wetlands, you will find vernal pool animals.
Right. I'm not disputing that, and I agree with you. I think we're gonna have to say much more about that with the other project. I don't feel like it's I think that, I guess, I don't feel like adding more in this case here. I don't know whether people want to add more versus leave the letter as is. I guess I'd like to just get through to see whether the letter is fine as is, or whether we have a majority who want to add something more.
I would
I think
just
it's
look
good
at
as is.
plans. Yeah, look
Yeah.
at the plans for it. It's just the 4 lots that he's planning to carve off on along Greenwood. They're just under an acre, and they barely scrape some buffer zone. And as of right now, I don't think anything is really
No,
concretely proposed even in the buffer zone. So as of right now, there's like really no jurisdiction for us. So we just want to put some like general commentary about, please keep out of the buffer zone.
Right. which
all of the
hopefully-
vernal pool stuff is definitely gonna come into play on the Washington Street side, because that's all up in those vernal pools over there.
I asked a question by email and maybe I missed a response to it, which is that, you know, there actually, so there's this development, which I agree with everything you just said, Courtney, about where it is. They've been super careful to stay out of the buffer, to stay out of jurisdiction. But one thing I wanted to know is that this is a 40B, and then the Washington Street, I think, is also a 40B. So
They're
Why-
different. Yeah,
Why
I
are
think I mentioned this at the beginning. So they're different agencies because one is an ownership and one is a rental.
but they're
Well,
both.
where you going with this, Carol? In
Yeah,
terms
let
of
me-
what's the issue
why
for the
don't I
moment?
finish the
What
sentence?
issue is there for this letter?
I mean, it's an overall issue, so it may or may not be for this letter, which I'm asking is when a developer says, hey, I have this big parcel, on this part of the parcel, I'm gonna do a 40B, and on this part of the parcel, I'm doing a 40B. Why are they not being considered as one project? Because we are looking at the land in terms of its capacity, you know, the wetland protection, and having two different projects on either side of the same parcel could actually make bigger impacts. So is there a legal reason that we can't consider them together?
Well, they are two separate projects. There's no, just because they're dividing, you know, the one parcel of land up, they're two completely different projects, two different developers maybe.
No,
No, it's the same developer.
yeah.
Well,
And
I think one is partnering with another developer or something. I forget, but
Isn't it on the same parcel of land? It has not been subdivided, has it?
I mean, they
I mean,
will, but it's also, they are different agencies. I mean, they're
I
not,
understand
Carol's
different-
point is different. I agree with
Yeah.
you at that point, Carol. I don't think in this case that there's enough impact from this little project that it makes a difference to consider them as a whole. I see your
I
point,
just
and I
wonder
would agree.
procedurally, if
But-
ordinarily, if DEP would say we need to consider it because it's the same property, do we need to consider it as a whole?
That's something we could deal with when we get to the NOI for it, but I think again that that there is some issue of, there are issues within the Wetlands Protection Act, and some stuff in some course I took years ago, where you do have to watch out that somebody can't divide a property up into separate projects and create an impact, or create the way they do it is
There's
creating access. Like they say that, oh, wow, I need to now access this project across wetlands because they took a lot, they subdivided it, and they removed the access point to the back when they cut off something, say, oh, now I have to go through wetlands. And you can say, no, this is one project, this is one lot. You cannot create that burden to go through wetlands by carving off part of the land. So but that's the way I've seen it. But in terms of overall wetland impacts, in this case here, I see this little project being small enough and having no impact at this point that we can jurisdictionally say that I don't feel that concern arises for me in finalizing this letter. And even in how the notice of intent will go. But I could,
Michael, the one, I agree with you about the impacts of this part of it and maybe the impacts on the overall. But we know that in the past, we sometimes been caught in the situation where we haven't responded within a certain timeline to a 40B in a way that constrains it, or that, you know, frames it a certain way. And so I think it would be better for us to find out right away whether, from the DEP's point of view, we should be viewing these two as one project, because if we may wait later and that's like, well, sorry, you missed the timeline, you can't treat it that way. Do you understand what I'm saying?
who asked? So why are we being asked to give comments on Greenwood homes right now, but not on Washington Street homes?
We are being asked for the other one too.
Okay,
But
So
these are
the- so
probably,
the-
but that issue, but I think Carol's point is more about when we get to the NOI, to regulatory stuff, where we actually, these are just qualitative, sort of qualitative statements. The real issue I think Carol's getting at is the regulatory stuff, where we get an NOI or something like that. Can we look at it as two different NOIs versus whether we should be looking at it as one big NOI, for example? Is
There's
where I
a
think
phrase that
Carol's-
appears in a few places in the regulations that talks about cumulative impacts as opposed to sort of individual impacts.
Right.
Carol, is that what you're trying to refer
Yeah.
to here?
That sounds like you're going in the right direction. I haven't researched it. But
Somebody needs to look at it. I'm gonna say that it's a good point. We can just check. Somebody could either, whether you could talk to Joyce about it, Carol, and see whether for efficiency of getting through this, about whether there's a concern here about when the NO notice of intent for this comes through, whether there's some reason to look at them. There's some issue about looking at an NOI on one part of a property versus an NOI on another part of a property. And we can go, why don't you talk to Joyce about it and she can go look into that. Okay, moving on. Any other comments on this letter? Sorry, I'm just trying to be a little hall monitor here. Okay,
Looks good to
I
me.
move to approve the letter as edited in submission to the select board.
second,
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Michael, I, Jacob,
Aye.
Kurt,
aye.
Carol,
I,
Courtney,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
and Matt.
Aye.
Okay. Moving on. Okay, we've got this done here. Just have to remember to send it. Let's go do. Jacob, would you like to take over for, let's see if we can get through a tree policy vote today.
Okay, let's see. So I sent out a draft about 2 weeks ago, which had which had all the edits that we talked about in the last meeting. One substantive change that I made there was I added a clause to not conflict with the regulations about stacking cordwood in buffer zones. And then I got comments from Michael with a bunch of sort of grammar and copy edits. There was one substantive change in there, which was to change the definition of snags to say trunks that are between 5 and 25 feet tall, which I said, fine, let's just proceed with that, and made that change everywhere. I can. Should I share a screen with the edits because I think what's in the meeting folder is the same thing we reviewed 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think I I only sent it to you for you to.
Jake,
Okay.
yeah, was that the one that just where you said you accepted all the track edits and made a few?
Yes, but that was only sent to
Yeah.
you and Michael.
Okay, but that's the
But
one
that's
that
the-
I
that's
read.
the- Yeah, that's the one I want to vote on.
Okay. I do have a fairly substantial comment on that.
Okay, let's do. Sure, go ahead.
Pull it up, or you want me to just go ahead?
I can share that.
Just share the cleaned version, the new one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll share. Let's see. What do I want? I want a window. It's not showing me. Let's see. Let's move to. Hold on. That looks better. Is that coming up now? It's probably too small to read.
very, very tiny on my screen.
I can move. Let me see if I can move.
I
windows
could read it
around.
at this level.
Yep, that's good.
That's too big. Okay. Is the right version? Yeah, this is the right version. Go ahead, Courtney.
So I just wanted to be clear. I think we had discussed in the meeting, and it says it under the purpose that the
Purpose. So that'll be
that
here.
this
Okay.
is limited to trees in the buffer zone. And you know, the whole intro to the policy at the very top talks about dead and dying trees in wetlands or the buffer zones.
Yes. Okay, I
which-
didn't.
Yeah, so I don't know if you want to say like if it's in wetlands, it needs to go a different route, or if you just want to, I don't know how you want to rejigger that, but it kind of
Okay.
leads you to think one thing when you start reading it, and then
Yeah, that's true.
down to the nitty gritty.
We somewhere, okay, so down below in here, we in a couple of different places we do talk about so why don't I just remove the in wetlands or?
Well,
Well, I was just wondering, maybe,
it's a guide, but we
It's a
talk about
guide.
it.
yeah. So do you
I
want to
think-
like, I don't know if you want to add that somewhere to that, you know, you discuss about needing an RDA for certain things. Do you want to put some, like another caveat in there that if it's located in a wetland, then you can't do this?
Because I mean, I think it would have to be I don't know how we would say an RDA would work in a wetland proper.
No, I think we could just add a sentence that says after the RDA one saying that, well, to be discussed.
The language you have down at purpose, I think you could just pull that sentence and put it up there.
Oh, just copy this sentence.
Or no, at the end of B, trees located in wetlands themselves need to follow a different
okay.
process.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
same
Just to
thing
point
happened.
that out, exactly.
Yeah, Courtney, when I was reading it, same thing. I got to that
Okay.
point
Yep,
and I
yep,
sort
yep.
of had to go back and check
Yeah.
what I was thinking about.
'Cause
Yeah.
when we got there, I was like, I know that's what we agreed upon, but
Right.
I think that fixes it very easily.
That would go at the end of that,
Just
right
put that
there.
at the end.
Yeah,
at
it
the
looks like
end of
right
the-
there.
Yeah.
Stick it in and see what it reads like.
Let's see.
Oh, trees. You could say, yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Because we want that at the top, just kind of like the roadmap for someone reading this. If they get to that point and say,
Yeah.
oh, my trees are in wetlands, then they know
Yeah.
they gotta do. I like that.
Cool.
Okay. Let's see. Were there any other interesting changes from last time beyond what we talked about? Yeah, why is this green? I thought I fixed this.
Maybe
Jacob, can
maybe
I-
it's a track edit you have to accept.
Oh, is that it?
Carol, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you. One thing I was gonna ask
Okay, I'll
is,
fix that later. That's not.
Somehow it's no longer a clean copy.
Uh-oh, you've got a
Yeah.
whole mess of things there.
We'll just fix that
I'll
we
just
did.
turn on. Oh, I have it. Okay, I had it showing changes.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
That's still green, but I'll figure that out later.
Jacob, can I ask you a question? This is a really simple. It's formatting related, and this is probably because like my profession is to do like writing. I'm a communications director at a high-tech company. So I'm wondering why you keep the Roman numerals in the places where they look like where it's boldface, and why not just like treat each of those as kind of like a subhead? So I'm curious because sometimes it has ones, it has the Roman numerals. It feels a little bit legalistic, but is there a reason to do it in that way?
The reason was to have the first page be an informal introduction that's not specifying the policy itself, and
Yep.
then the policy itself have numbered sections, such that if you want to refer to it somewhere else, you could say in the policy in section. I mean, I don't care whether it's Roman numerals or numbered letters. We could change that. But just so if you want to be able to refer to a specific paragraph, specific sentence, there is a fully specified way to do so.
Who do you think is going to refer to sentences that way? The agent?
Yeah.
Hmm. I'm not sure that it's needed. I mean,
Well, I think I think it's good with the Roman numerals the way you have this, and if it's the fact that it's different above, if you scroll up a little bit, maybe we could just, I mean, maybe you put some, or now down a little bit, sorry, maybe just
Okay, so
something
you
at the
see
top of page 2 that just sort of
Mm-hmm.
indicates here's where the official policy begins. You know, just a little heading there. I don't know, might be redundant.
I think that does make it a little clearer. I think people in the public will not necessarily need that, but okay. To me, it made it kind of feel very legalistic.
That's probably why I like it.
Yeah, no, to me, it makes me feel official. And then this
Yeah.
is
This is not
policy.
how I would have drafted it. Yeah.
I like
It
to
does
know,
need to
I
be-
like to know what the rules are,
Yeah.
and I like them all laid out for me. So I don't run afoul.
I'm fine with that structure here. It's easier for people to reference the things too. We could see if anybody gives feedback that they don't like it, and we can edit it later.
I had one formatting thing while we're on it. Down where you have the form that people can fill out.
Yep.
If the intention is for folks to actually print this out and fill it out, it'd be great to get it all on one page. I think it bleeds onto this second page a little bit.
Yeah, it does.
Oh, maybe not. Maybe you got it.
Well, it's 2 pages. It's 2 pages. I mean, this is part of the
Oh,
form
okay.
now, too,
Oh,
but
what I
so
saw
part of the
had
problem.
the-
Part of the
yeah,
problem is this is not Word that I'm using to create this. So
Oh.
it's probably going to look different.
Oh, what are you using?
This is Open Office or whatever
Oh, yeah, because we want to
is.
have a form. We want to have a Word, we want to have a Word version so that people can just easily.
Yeah, so my
type
suggestion would be the sort of separate from the text from what it says. If we want to have somebody do a formatting pass about just spacing and such that is not me and therefore has a copy of Word, then we should do that. So just need a button. I mean,
But you could save it. I assume if you're using one of those things, you could just save it as a Word doc.
Oh yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Okay. We can see how it works, and we could learn. We could always play with this thing as people. Joyce will get some feedback when people are using it. If they have trouble filling it out or something else, we could always just make some changes to it.
Yeah, it looks better here. What I noticed is right there, section D, that last that fourth prompt, actually that part appeared on the next page. So maybe
okay.
maybe when it's in Word, that's what happens. Not a huge deal,
Yeah,
but I
that's-
just
No, we'll get it on one page, one way or another.
Make
Just
it a
change
PDF. and it'll
Change
be
the top and
fillable.
bottom margins.
if you save it as a PDF, that's a good idea, Courtney.
Yep.
No, the problem with that is that it's hard to fill in. If
True.
you save it as a PDF.
mean,
My
fillable.
issue is that you can have you can
Fillable.
save it as a PDF and then have a Word version for these 2 pages.
You can't fill out a PDF. I do that all the time.
Yes, but I don't think most people have that, and it's not as easy to do.
Is
I
it?
find, in my own experience, and I think, and most people don't have. I don't think most people have that software.
I don't have, I have the free software, whatever.
I know there's a lot of free ones, but I'm not sure. Let's put it this way, we'll have it available in both formats, PDF and Word. And that way people could take their choice, how to fill it out. Any other comments on this thing?
My obvious comment is this is a lot of work, Jacob, and appreciate taking the time to think these things through and format it all so well too. Thank you.
Second, that,
Yeah, I agree. It's really well done.
I mean, other than that one comment, that was all that I had. It's fantastic.
I move to accept the policy as on the screen.
Boom, second.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Michael, I, Jacob,
Oops, aye.
you get the first person to vote after me, I guess. Matt,
I'm gonna vote aye, but I still don't like the 1.5 inch tree versus 2 1-inch trees. I think it's too arbitrary and a little bit unreasonable, but in deference to all the work that Jacob did and all the work the group has done, I'm gonna vote an aye.
okay. Point noted. Courtney,
Aye.
Kurt,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Carol,
Aye.
did I get everybody? Since I don't see everybody, lose track. Okay, I think if vote passed 7-0, we'll let Joyce implement this thing and see how it works. And we could always come back and tweak it to see what how this all goes. Okay, that's good progress there. Moving on. We have budget season is starting. The last major item, I think, for tonight is the budget. I think since we have so many new members, I suddenly realized today that that it's time to do a little primer on what our budget looks like. You can, I think, let me see this. Share sharing. This will stop. Yes, I can stop other people. There we go. I have power. I can share a screen. Okay. This is a picture of a spreadsheet that is a standard form that all departments in town have to fill in. And let's see, the headings here are a little there. It has a history. Basically, every year, the accountant department, the finance department sends out a spreadsheet and you start filling in your budget request for the next year. This is the spreadsheet that was done for last year's budget, where they fill in all the first columns. We fill in the last column with the budget request. I'll come back to this thing here. And then there is a more detailed table. God, where is the shrinkage? Let's see, view. On this online thing, I'm not quite sure I know where you shrink. How do you do a zoom on this thing? Somebody know where you can change the size of this? Cells editing view. God. I think it would be under view. I don't see a screen.
I'm on a Mac, but isn't there like a keyboard shortcut for that? Like the plus and the minus, hold something and hit plus or minus?
Whoops, not on this one here, as you can
Okay,
see.
wow.
That's for the whole screen. God, okay, well, I'll just have to do it. What it has here is your salary positions are dealt with differently, where you get to fill in. The rate is usually determined by the rate in the previous year, plus the cost of living increase. That is the town personnel board, together with, I think, the select board and advisory, do work out a cost of living, a COLA, for all of the non-union employees there. This year, in the document that I sent out from advisory, they stated that this is 4.5%. So the hourly rates will be the last year plus 4.5%. This is the hours a week that we put in. They usually give us the number of weeks in a year, which varies from time to time. And then it calculates out a salary, these numbers here, which then go back to this first spreadsheet. To walk through, our budget primarily consists of staffing. And with the most important expensive position being our conservation agent. That has gone up a lot over time, given the demands for that position. We also have an administrative assistant, Deborah. And one could have here things like a minutes clerk, which sometimes some people have. But this has been our staffing configuration for quite a long time with these two people. And then we have a set of other expenses, non-staff expenses here, which even though they're budgeted at this level of detail, basically they're all liquid. You can move them around from one to the other without any requiring any review. Conservation property management maintenance, excuse me, is by far our largest one. Just going through it, special projects is related to land issues. We used to have consultants that we would hire here, but generally we've never really used it outside of the NOI process, where then we often have consultants hired that are paid for by the applicant if the project is large or complicated. This, we have legal notices. It's a small budget for when we do some stuff we might have to do for our own internal work here. Normally, those legal announcements are all paid for by applicants as part of the permitting process. Printing and mailing, we have stopped using that. Because again, a lot of the mailing stuff, I guess it's a good question. We do have a lot of mailing expenses for certified stuff to go to the registry. I can't tell whether they're just basically put under supplies and materials now, or postage. I guess it's put under postage. So printing and mailing is no longer relevant. Meetings and seminars is a limited budget we have to help people who want some cost coverage for going to MACC training. Postage is the kind of stuff we have to do for a lot of our permitting. Supplies and materials is just sort of office printing materials, maybe some software and such. Travels, lodging, and meals. Not quite sure what, oh, that's for the office staff when they go right around town to go to site visits and whatnot. They are reimbursed at the standard mileage that you see for the IRS and other things. So that's primarily the agent when they drive around town to go to sites, gets reimbursed for that expense. Dues, members, and subscription and memberships is our membership in the MACC, which allows us to get training as well as other kind of support. And every town, most, I think 99% of the towns in Massachusetts belong to the MACC and chip in this thing to support that organization, where we could also get some free assistance at times. So that constitutes our other expenses. These are generally, they float around a bit, but it's relatively small. The property management here, this is the big one that we're going to have to work on. We'll have to get some review, where there's a whole set of detail that I won't go into now, where we do a sub-itemization where here's the cost of, I forgot to pull up a file like that. I'm not going to go search for one, where we literally have by piece of property, Barber Reservation. We might do mowed once a year. In the big fields, maybe twice around. So we might have all the fields are mowed once a year at this cost blank. Then we have the Barber Reservation Homestead, which is around the parking lot. We used to have a fee where it was mowed every few months or a month or so at this much per mowing. And so that leads to that cost. And we have a cost for Hopestill mowing, for Leland Mill. So there would be a list that sums up to this number here that we'll get to look at hopefully much sooner maybe even the next meeting, where the itemization of that that sums up to that number is generated by property. And that'll be a lot different this year because many of the properties will be done by DPW versus us having to find somebody locally, private party to do it for us, generally at a fairly low price. Special projects is where we've tried to do particular efforts on individual properties, such as the Barber, or Hope Still, where we might have that's generated out of our land inventories. That's part of why we want to look at our land inventories by property and see what kind of recommendations there are for improvements in each of these properties. And whether we fund it from the town budget or we have it from other trust funds, which there'll be another discussion at another time about some other funds that the Conservation Commission has access to. So those will get more detail. Those are the bigger numbers. Going back to Form 5 here. Right now, we will have to, the directive from advisory that we get each year that I sent out is where they generally recommend that everything be level funded. They want to see the same cost from one year to the next, with the exception of the COLA. Here now, and on even our other costs, I would say here, these costs have generally been quite flat, as you can see here. There's slight increases here. We moved some numbers around. It's interesting how supplies and materials have to go and see why this has increased so much. It was higher here. But that's something we'll go into we'll have to get a story about to figure out what we want to put forth for the current, for the fiscal year 24, which will begin in July 1st of next year. Can't remember, I was going to say something here, but can't remember what I was going back there for, but whatever. Now, these generally were quite stable in these numbers. We've periods when we've changed things to deal with the needs and hiring issues. As I've said before, last time, I think we've had trouble finding with a lot of towns hiring new people for the agent position. This position here has remained fairly more stable at the 18 hours. She's actually been working a little bit more, 19 or 20. That's because we don't have our full agent in place. Going forward, I'm losing my voice here. We've advertised the job for 35 hours, had a salary range from about $32 to $40 because we're not sure what we're going to attract for people. At this point, we should reestablish our ad and renew it a little bit, but we've been working with the fact that Joyce has been filling in has some shortcomings in terms of land management and other kind of help, but she's been putting in roughly approaching about 20 hours a week. So we have a definite shortfall and certain things aren't being done. But we're satisfied with her performance. She is interested in taking on the job, albeit at the higher level of the rate range, given her experience. But she won't be able to do something like that until sometime in 2023. So we're sort of going along with her at this point now, unless somebody incredible shows up, with the hope that in next year she will be able to work here. The issue that I'll come up with some cost scenarios for the next time, after talking a little more with Kelly, who's acts as our treasurer, who's not here, is that if we envision Joyce being free to take the position for, let's say, fiscal year 24, and let's say negotiation would have to go on between her and the town administrator, who's the head of HR. But if the negotiation, given her qualifications, is where this number becomes more at the $40 an hour level, or around there, that'll be a significant increase at this. There have been discussions about the fact that maybe with her level of experience, that we might be able to lower this number by maybe 10% or so, sort of the lower 30s, with the higher number here, that we might be able to come up with a budget that isn't a very significant increase over what a baseline or a level funded budget would be. So that's what we'll be looking at next time, is what that impacts might be. We might be able to level fund the commission as a whole, because we might save more than enough money on land management to cover the fact that at her rate, we might have an extra 5% higher number here that we can compensate for and cover by some savings on the land management budget, so that we can still come in at overall level funded as requested. And that so we'll have to look at some actual budget scenarios so that we can move forward on something that has to be submitted by the end of December, if I remember correctly. I will stop here. That's your overview of the budget. People want me to go back to something or have some questions about all of this, please. I open it up.
I move that there not be any questions.
Nice try.
There was an advisory member spying on this meeting who says there's gonna be an issue with the increase in supplies and materials.
Supplies and materials.
Yes, this is gonna break the town budget.
Okay. There we go. I can't even, oh yeah, there we go. Well, we already got it budgeted, because this is the numbers we actually got approved for. See, these are all approved numbers for this current fiscal year. So we're approved at 525 for a couple of years now, but we will go see what that amounts to, whether we need it all.
Say you don't, Michael.
What?
I say you don't.
Okay, fine. Well, we'll have to talk with Kelly, who does those sort of numbers there. We'll have to project out and see whether those are less because we're printing less and other kind of things. Now that we used to print a lot more, so we used to need printer supplies and
Yeah.
some other kind of things. So, but I'd say we might be able to reduce that. I don't know how postage is going with postage rates going up.
We're gonna stop buying expensive Post-it notes.
Okay, that's the posted notes, but as to postage, I don't know what we'll have to come back to that. Okay, do people have any just questions about the overall structure of our budget, or just higher level issues? Or I've numbed you into compliance. Okay,
Sound of numbness.
fine,
That makes sense. It's not a huge budget.
right.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. So, okay, in that sense, we'll hopefully have some numbers to look at for next time and beforehand for you to read. So that is, unless somebody else has some other issues here, I would say, other than we've got to get prepared to look at the larger 40B project on Washington Street. Look for some stuff on budget to do there, and be prepared. The next thing will be for the we're going to get hopefully material sooner than later on 3 Prospect Street. And the more people look at that ahead of time and come up with any comments, because we can, if you have comments on new material that comes in on 3 Prospect Street, you could funnel comments before the next meeting to Joyce, me, and Courtney, so that they can be sometimes fed back to the applicant before the meeting, in case there's something missing or things that they wanted to see that they're not seeing, that they expected to, rather than leave it to during the meeting. It's very useful to give feedback to Joyce ahead of time, so that we can move this thing ahead beforehand even, so that we're not left with those kind of questions at the meeting per se. Because there might not be enough detail for some people about some of the issues there, what they want to do. So please try to do that for 3 Prospect Street so that we can move that one forward one way or another. And yes, and the comments, and start thinking about issues that you think about for the Washington Street 40B. On that note, anything else?
Nope.
Okay, I move to adjourn at 10:02.
I'm gonna let
Second.
Matt second that.
I got there
Wonderful.
first.
Yep, you win.
Okay, wow, I'm glad we're getting diversity here. Okay, I think I heard a second. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Michael, I, Matt,
Aye.
Carol.
I,
It stops doing this. Kurt,
Aye.
Courtney,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Jacob.
Hi.
I hope I got everybody, since I do it in different order each time. I can never tell. Okay, meeting adjourned. We've gone through it there. We've got a tree policy, which will be nice to see how that goes. And there'll be interesting issues on the 40B and hopefully sorting out our budget. Okay, thanks, everybody.
good night.
Bye.